Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Tommy. Tommy is the original contributor to PsyOptions. He was also a part of the team that won the Solana Serum DeFi Hackathon. He brings over 10 years plus of experience in engineering, and he's been building on Solana since the early days. So right now, what started as Psy Options is Psy Finance because they are creating more DeFi products to help the end user get into the DeFi space and be a part of this particular revolution. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Tommy. Thank you so much for making out the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, for our listeners, can you tell us a little about your background and how you got into Web3 and as an original contributor to PsyFi?
Yeah, so I'm an engineer by degree. I started studying electrical engineer
Okay.
as an electrical engineer, and I found out hardware was not really as interesting to me and started switching to software. So I've been a software engineer for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And I got into Web3 in 2000. I started 2015. I started paying attention to the Ethereum ICO, but I was still in college at the time and didn't really have money, so I didn't participate.
Hmm.
Um, but then in 2000, late 2016, early 2017, when things started coming back with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of people building on top of Ethereum, started building some smart contracts in Solidity on top of Ethereum. And that was just more part-time, getting my feet wet. I still had a full-time job as an engineer in the Web2 space. But I always loved Web3, was just messing around and participating in hackathons.
Hmm.
And after winning a hackathon in the Solana ecosystem in 2021, that's what pulled me full-time into Web3.
Wow. So that's quite a organic journey that you had there, that you were working as an engineer, and then you switched gears a little bit, and Web3 fascinated you, and you won a hackathon in the Solana ecosystem. And is that how Genesis, the sci-fi platform came into existence?
Yeah, that is actually. So we were, my twin brother and I were messing around on just building on top of Solana when they first went to mainnet in summer of 2020, late summer 2020. And we entered a hackathon in the very first Solana hackathon ever, which was in November of 2020. And we built like an Oracle system in place there. But shortly after that hackathon, we wanted to automate an options trading strategy in traditional finance, but our
Okay.
brokerage wouldn't give us access, API access to our data and our accounts.
Right.
And so there was another Solana hackathon coming up, and we were like, why don't we just try building this into the blockchain on Solana? It'll be a fun project, and we'll have API access built in, and we're just building this new options infrastructure. And that was really the genesis behind just building options into the blockchain. And then winning the hackathon is what actually turned it into a full-time job and a company and all that. We never set out to make money and start a company or launch a token, but one thing led to another. You win a hackathon, investors reach out, other
Hmm.
people in the ecosystem reach out, and you kind of piece it together from there.
Right, absolutely. Then, it kind of all of those doors open for you. And at that point, you and your brother started off with sci-fi.io.
Correct. It was originally PsyOptions
Okay.
and PsyOptions.io, but we started over time. We've been building this stuff for over 3 years now.
Hmm.
And so a lot has changed. We built a bunch of options infrastructure from like American options to cash settled European options. Um, and then, options are very complex financial products.
Right.
And so started um, we started moving into other areas of the financial system and added a borrow lending platform. And so people could just borrow and lend assets in an over collateralized manner, similar to Aave and whatnot. And so we started getting into other things outside of options. And so we rebranded from Psy Options to PsyFi because people just always associated with only options. And we
Right.
wanted to eventually build outside of that.
Absolutely. You wanted to scale, right? That makes sense. So, in terms of, just sort of the Solana ecosystem, what were the kind of reasons that you were attracted to it?
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of missing infrastructure. There still is. So, there was not many people building on Solana. I mean, when we originally started, Solana was just this kind of new blockchain that didn't have any traction, but that like quickly changed within a few months of us like building there. It was pretty crazy, the trajectory on how many people were building on the ecosystem and how many developers there were. But so we saw a lot of technological advancements with Solana, with the parallelization of transactions and the improved throughput that provides the blockchain. And so that was one of the key factors that drew us into Solana in the early days. And then there was other great organizations contributing and building on top of it. And so there was a group building an order book. There was people building, automated market makers or AMMs,
Right.
and a bunch of other critical, blockchain applications that we saw had success in Ethereum. And so we saw a lot of these great teams and developers putting resources behind building on Solana, and that's what drew us in and built more conviction to continue building and make it more than just a side project.
Absolutely. So, as of now, if you had to perhaps recommend an ecosystem for a builder to start on with, especially if they are building in the DeFi space, what would you recommend?
Oh, absolutely, Solana. I
Yeah.
I've explored a lot of other ecosystems. Well, I also, it probably depends on what they're building too. I would ask what they're building. There's a lot of pros, but there are some cons when you have this kind of monolithic shared resource. And so depending on what you are building, that might dictate. But for most applications, the general answer is going to be Solana for me. I've explored a bunch of different blockchains and app chains and things like that. But most applications are perfectly like fit into Solana.
Right. As somebody who has, there has been a creation of Armada, right? Which is, it's kind of gaining a lot of attention. Can you explain what that is and how it fits into the broader Solana ecosystem, like from your perspective?
Yeah. So as we built out PsyFi and launched the side token and created a DAO and governance infrastructure on chain and contributed to general ecosystem governance infrastructure, we realized once you launch a token, there's so much work that has to be done to create the kind of tokenomics or governance or community participation in the ecosystem or your sub ecosystem, if you will, that it's a full-time job for a full engineering team and a full product team. And so that was kind of the genesis for Armada. And so Armada's goal is to take care of everything token related so teams can focus on their core products. And we do that with three main verticals. The
Okay.
first is token launching or token generation infrastructure. So a few different auction mechanisms for creating a new token and launching a new token and determining what the fair market price is based on the actual open public market for that. There's also airdropping infrastructure. So a lot of teams that are working on building point systems or need help building point systems can leverage that infrastructure to airdrop. And then the second piece is once you have a token, well, the next thing is people need to be able to buy or sell that token and get in and out of your community or increase their level of involvement in that community. And so then you need on-chain liquidity. So we have we built a product on top of Orca's Whirlpool called a concentrated liquidity market making vault, where community members can delegate their tokens to an institutional market maker, which will manage the liquidity on chain. And then we have another program that's actually should be coming out in Q1 called liquidity bonding that helps increase more liquidity and incentivize more community liquidity on an underlying token. And so like that second vertical is all about on-chain liquidity.
Right.
And then, and given Solana's infrastructure, Solana should be the best place to trade any sort of Solana-based tokens. There's no reason for centralized exchanges when you have central limit order books and AMMs and all these other price discovery and liquidity mechanisms on chain.
Right. This is
And then
very
the third piece
interesting.
is
Yeah.
tokenomics and governance.
Right.
And that's the one we're seeing a lot of interest in right now from, because even if you've already launched a token or have liquidity, a lot of people want transparent on-chain tokenomics. They haven't invested in DAO infrastructure and things like that. And so we're seeing a lot of existing teams reach out to us for knowledge and understanding of setting up their own tokenomics and governance infrastructure on chain.
Yeah, that is what I was about to say, actually. As somebody who's been on the other side as a founder, this entire token aspect is like a full-time job. And you need to monitor and manage so many parts that it can be very, very daunting. So it's more props to you guys for creating a platform that can really help founders.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing the traction, and we felt that pain point ourselves. So
Yeah.
the more we don't have Solana teams or just Web3 teams in general burning money, reinventing the wheel, the more efficient, our systems will be, the better the products will be.
So are there any plans to get this product to go beyond the Solana ecosystem into other chains as well?
Yeah, we're definitely evaluating multi-chain play here, but
Okay.
I think there's a lot of infrastructure that is very technically challenging, and it's not, this would all be stuff that we would have to custom build on each chain we went to.
Right.
And so, we can help with the ideal tokenomics and governance, like modeling stuff. Or we have a few partners that will help with tokenomics modeling and token launching mechanisms. And then we would help build that out on a case-by-case basis if the opportunity is large enough. So we are definitely evaluating a multi-chain future here, but we're just finishing up a few core pieces of Solana infrastructure in Q1 and seeing where that plays out.
That makes sense. It's always sort of sensible to weigh these things out because, as you said, you'll need to create something for every chain from the ground up, and that itself is a lot of work. So getting the foundation right is important here.
Yes, exactly.
So how does Armada contribute to PsyFi's mission of generating sustainable yield for users?
So Armada is going to be powering all of PsyFi's actual tokenomics and governance.
Okay.
So PsyFi will be dog fooding all of the Armada infrastructure to start. We're going to be releasing probably by the end of January 2024, releasing some updates on staking and governance for the PsyFi DAO and ecosystem. And then how the actual Armada and PsyFi brands and tokenomics models play together. Like we're not sure if Armada is going to have a token or not. We're like just trying to find product market fit and solve these problems before we figure out how all these pieces come together on chain. So we're just gonna, things are going to change. It'd be very dynamic as we go forward with how these ecosystems play together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that happens, right? Because the space is so dynamic, things keep changing. You'll have to see how that kind of plays out. So, is Armada right now open for all users? Like anybody can go and sign up and use the services?
Yeah, so there's a few things that are, it's a B2B and a B2C approach if you
Right.
want to take kind of consumer models. So there's, only it's really, it makes sense for teams, if they're launching tokens or people who want to launch tokens to use that token launching infrastructure. It makes sense for organizations, DAOs or teams for using the tokenomics or governance infrastructure, right? That's not for just kind of everyday average community users. Those are people who are launching tokens or are big holders of tokens and trying to create tokenomics for their DAO or organization that they are a big part of. But on the liquidity side, that's where there's a everyday user component where people could just go to armadafi.so and interact with the pools, deposit assets, and delegate those assets to institutional market makers and provide liquidity. So there's also some liquidity mining infrastructure to that on-chain liquidity component. And
Mm-hmm.
so we'll see a lot more. We're just still in a very early phase working with
Right.
onboarding new market makers
Yeah.
and improving that infrastructure before we do a lot more consumer facing marketing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I would assume that because primarily at its essence, this is something that will be very, very attractive for the founders, and it'll be more of a B2B product. But obviously, the liquidity mining aspect is consumer driven, and it would make sense to market it to consumers. Now, because right now we are in the middle of, not middle, perhaps the end of this particular bear run that we've had in the this particular liquidity mining aspect of your product. Do you reckon that you'll be pulling out this product and marketing it more aggressively in the bull market?
Oh, definitely. I think it makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Um, there's a few other like strategies that we've built in and haven't fully released yet
Okay.
that make sense in the bull market. Um, there's a few liquidity mining like pieces that makes more sense in the bull market too. So it's just, yeah, without a doubt, things will be more aggressively marketed in the bull market. I think we're also seeing a lot of Solana teams are more
Hmm.
interested in launching tokens.
Hmm.
And so we really see the teams as this big top of the funnel participant in our ecosystem where we're delivering this infrastructure to these teams, and they're also, helping market these products to their community because it ultimately benefits the entire ecosystem, Armada, their community, and Solana in general.
Right, absolutely. So, can you tell me a little more about, the kind of milestones that PsyFi has seen? Because, as you mentioned, you've been using it for the last, you've been building on it, sorry, for the last 3 years or so. So, since its early days, it has grown quite a bit. What are the kind of bigger milestones or achievements that you're particularly, proud of, fond of, that your team has achieved?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is in the last bull market, we hit over $100 million in TVL on
Wow.
just options.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that was a big one. But then, that was in a low interest rate environment. And so this
Right.
bull market is slightly different. And where we have interest rates that, the highest they've been in the last so many years, the risk reward profile for people looking for volatility based yield has changed given this risk-free rate or pretty much risk-free rate of return. And so that's kind of why we've expanded outside of just option selling vaults and short volatility products, and we've gone into the borrow lending and have built a new options AMM so people can run more robust strategies that fit their needs.
Hmm.
And so I'm really excited about some of the work that our team, our partner team in Singapore has been doing on an options AMM called SDX. And that's going to play. It's using the PsyFi infrastructure and is going to play a role in the ecosystem. So um, there's definitely a lot of stuff that we've been building over the last 10 months with Armada, SDX, and PsyFi that will be coming, full circle, hopefully in the next quarter or two.
Wow, that sounds brilliant. Absolutely. So, in terms of just what is perhaps the next big milestones you guys are looking forward to, that is something that I would be very interested in knowing for PsyFi as well as for Armada.
Yeah, so for PsyFi, I mean, the biggest one that I'm excited is it's all this governance infrastructure and work. So for the longest time in the Solana ecosystem, you've had to make a decision: do I stake my tokens or do I participate in governance? There's been no way to participate in governance and get staking rewards. And so we're pushing an update by the end of this month for staking and governance with the PsyFi ecosystem. So that one's been a lot of planning, and there's just so much work when you
Right. So in terms of the bigger milestones you've mentioned, given your the niche that you're building in, basically it's automation of trading strategies, which is a notable feature in PsyFi. How is it streamlining the user experience? And if you could tell us a little more about the open source financial tools that you guys are building, so that the listeners can get a overview of these products and they would perhaps go on and try to use them. If you could tell us a little about that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just start with options. I mean, they're extremely complex financial products, right? So, a call option, for those who don't know, in the simplest terms, is if you buy a call option, it's giving you the right, but not the obligation to buy a asset at a specified price at or before, for an American style option, a specific expiration date. And so, and then selling an option is basically underwriting and locking up, if you're collateralizing it, locking up those assets and selling that option or that right but not obligation to someone else in return for some premium. And so these, it's a very complex product for those who have never really messed with options.
Yeah.
And so the PsyFi strategies will automate selling options, whether it's selling calls, selling puts, and vertical spreads, and different combinations of one or two options, to give different risk and reward profiles and different amounts of leverage. And it will, create that two-sided marketplace for buying and selling and running those automated strategies. So, they're very complex products. And so for those who don't know how to use them, these automated strategies allow users to kind of just deposit assets and participate in a regularly running strategy without rolling or managing those positions themselves,
Right.
without evaluating, the
The market at
volatility of
every
an
good.
underlying asset. Yeah, exactly. Determining whether what delta their option should be, and all these other complex metrics that go into determining, well, what should I price this at? What should the strike price be? When should I roll it, etc.
Right.
So, yeah.
Though, you keep mentioning, obviously options are complicated as a product, and not everybody would perhaps be comfortable using them. Do you also create like educational material so that people can get to know how to perhaps get in this game?
Yeah, we have education materials on the actual like strategies on the website on psyfi.io, as well as the docs, which are docs.psyfi.io. And then the other, like if you're just trying to understand options or, really develop an understanding of these more complex financial products, Robinhood has an incredible options knowledge center.
Right.
And so we kind of tend to point people there. They were a big part of the options craze
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and they taught a lot of people, and a lot of people traded their first options on Robinhood. So their material is great.
Absolutely. I think Robinhood does have one of the more comprehensive education material and options. And if somebody is perhaps looking to get into this game, I would also highly recommend that, you go check out that material before you get your hands dirty, because like Tommy mentioned, it can be a very, very complicated tool. And for the unversed especially, then, it's better to make sure that, you know what you're getting into, because this is ultimately your hard-earned money that is at stake.
Exactly.
So what kind of considerations go into perhaps creating something that is user friendly? When it comes to these DeFi products, this is one of the complaints that we hear from people all the time, that these products are just complicated to use, and even just the experience itself is very complicated. So how have you been able to perhaps make this a little more approachable?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, and it's hard to look at right now, but where we originally started with psyoptions.io and these trading of these options, we realized it was extremely